My name's Alicia, and I just recently started a TikTok page called The Female Shark. It's only been live for a month, and it was actually on my goals board to start this later on in the year. And what it originally was going to be was it was going to be a behind the scenes TikTok page where I was talking about my different goals and stuff, and it was going to be like an accountability page for people. It was going to be like, these are my goals and I'm doing X, Y, and Z today to achieve them. Like, what are your goals? And it was going to be like a place where people could go and feel like, okay, well, maybe I'm not necessarily feeling it today, but I'm still going to do it anyway. And then I did one video where I said, I have borderline personality disorder, and if you want to ask me anything about this, then you can. And that video did really well. I did actually have a TikTok page last summer. It was called Shark Mentality. And it actually was doing well, but it did nowhere near as well as this page. I think I had it across like 3 months and it gained like 500 followers. But the people following me were really active in the comments and they were always asking, like, how do I cope with this? And how do I cope with that? And I never really prepared an answer. I just sort of did it on the whim of it. So I decided I want to do it again, but I genuinely care about what I'm saying to people. So instead of just doing it on the whim of it, every question I get asked, I'm going to sit down and think about it and then go to the camera and then say, this is what I would say about that. So it's like a 2.0 of shark mentality, but it's called the female shark this time
Love
around.
that. Is Shark Mentality still up, or did you take that down?
Shark Mentality is still up, but there's nothing on it. So the page still exists. And I was actually going to put a video on there saying that I had the new page. I just will be completely transparent. I haven't got around to that yet,
That's
but that's my
completely
plan.
fine. All sounds really good, honestly. What happened a month ago to make you decide? Like you said, you planned for later in the year, but what a month ago was like, okay, I'm gonna do it now today.
So when I first made the page, so the page wasn't actually a BPD page a month ago. So the first video I ever did, it's taken down now.
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
what I was thinking. So I actually went on, and I'll be fully transparent. It's a video of me in my bed saying, um, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm just filming this video because people say you should document things online and I'm really struggling with keeping on top of everything, but I'm not going to give up. So I'm going to come and I'm going to make this TikTok page as like a BTS of everything I've got going on. And I'm going to hold myself accountable and I'm going to create a community where people strive and achieve to push their goals. And then I will have to have a look back. I could do it if I looked, I don't know what date it actually was. I did another video where I said I have borderline personality disorder. And if you'd like to ask me anything about that, then you can. And then that video did the best by far. And that's when I just thought, okay, I'm going to change this. And it actually turned from it being like an umbrella thing for everything to just being a whole another project that I had going on. So yeah,
I
never
love
mind.
that. That's so good. Do you feel like your BPD, like some people say that sometimes mental health encompasses like your whole like personality and it's all you're about, if that makes sense. I know it's personality disorder, ignore the word in, but
Right.
when people are like, this is me, like, and that's it, like, do you feel like it takes over your whole life, or do you think you've got a good balance between, like, you still got your own person separate to BPD? Does that make sense, or is it all encompassing?
It makes complete sense. And I personally, I think, well, I guess you are asking me personally. I have a personal answer to this. So I know exactly what you mean in terms of people make it their entire identity.
That's the
And
word I was looking for. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry, go on.
me personally, it's a strong part of my identity, and if I am being completely honest, I don't want it to be as much as it is. And this is where I want to come with a purpose of helping people to step out of it. Because although I feel myself that I'm at a point where it does take over my life in more ways than I want it to, I've also come up with ways as to where, so my personal coping mechanism is I would say I'm very much a realist. I'm like, okay, it is what it is. And the second you stop fighting it, that sets you free. So I look at it like, okay, I've got BPD. It is what it is. Okay, it limits me in some areas. And you know what? In other areas, it helps me to thrive. So instead of focusing on where it limits me, I'm going to focus on where I believe it helps me and the things that I believe it's helped me to achieve. And there was something I want to add to this as well. So for some aspects of my life personally, I just cannot do them because of BPD. I don't feel limited because of that. If I feel like it's just something like I've accepted and that's just who I am and I'm fully okay
Something
with
to
it.
adapt to, yeah, rather than think, oh no, I can't do anything. It's just adapting to a new way of life, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I'll give
Mm.
two examples of things that I absolutely cannot do. For example, I cannot work in a traditional job. So I haven't for the past 4 years. I cannot be in that environment. It does not suit me, and I completely accept that. I also massively struggled with traditional education, yet,
Mm.
like just that environment in general, I didn't like, yeah, it just didn't work for me. Yeah, I've learned a lot since then, and I cannot be in a relationship. So if
Interesting.
I really, really wanted to work on this, I believe I could. And if someone came to me and they said, I really, really want to be in a relationship, that means a lot to me, but I don't feel like I can, I would have full belief in that person that they could do it. And I think I have full belief in myself that I could do it. But with the point I'm at personally, and for what it would mean for me to overcome that, for me, I don't deem it as worth it. So when you say, is BPD my whole personality? I want to say no, but I feel like if I was to sit here and say no, I'd actually be lying. So, and I don't want to sit here and lie either. So,
No,
be
that's interesting.
fully transparent. Unfortunately, it is, and I don't want that to be the answer, but it
No,
is.
I get that. Okay. What? Tell me something interesting about yourself that isn't BPD. What's something that you enjoy that's separate?
Um, I am. I'm always looking for the next thing, and I'll get bored quickly. So, for example, I've done multiple things over the past couple years, and I love learning new things as well. So, I guess something that's separate about me, I love going to the gym. Oh, I'm a car girl, actually. I'll mention that.
You're a car girl, hell
I'm a
yeah.
car girl. Yeah. I actually crashed one of my cars this morning, but I'm getting it fixed right now. So,
What are you, cars?
yeah,
Damn.
it wasn't ideal. Not a lot can put me in tears, but that did quite trigger me this morning. So, yeah,
Gosh.
I lost my
Um.
rear bumper. So,
Oh no.
but yeah,
I hope it's okay. Gosh.
yeah, I'm a car
Um.
girl.
Hell yeah. Well, you said that you can't get upset about it. Do you think that BPD? Because some people think of BPD as like you're overly emotional, upset about everything, but I feel like it can also do the opposite. It can also like block things out and make
100%.
you almost like react incorrectly to what like a normal person would expect you to react like. Do you find
Absolutely.
that's the same to you? Yeah.
Yeah. So, say there's X situation, someone with BPD, depending on how their individual wiring has come about due to whatever their reasons for developing BPD was. So, same X situation, some people could react to that up here, whereas a normal person would react here, and then say, this is the normal baseline now, but like my hands have moved because I'm
Down
trying to
below. Yeah.
down below is what I'm trying to get at. So, a situation happened to me last week, which was really, really serious, and I could not comprehend it. Like, so I've been diagnosed with BPD for 5 years, but I've had BPD for way longer than that. It was actually
Mm.
recently I was thinking back and I was like, things were coming back to me that I didn't remember, and I was like, oh yeah, like it's been a lot longer than the last 5 years. And when the situation happened, my brain, so the way I look at it is that I've got my brain, like a normal person, and then I've got my BPD brain, and separating the two helps me to feel more in control of it. That's just one of my methods. So when this was happening, my brain knew how serious it was, but my BPD brain just wasn't letting me feel it. So this is a really, really um difficult thing to explain to a normal person. I use that term lightly, or should I say someone who doesn't have BPD. If someone who has BPD is watching this right now and they also they're still self-sufficient, they will be like, yeah, I know exactly what she's talking
Yeah.
about. So I was getting on with the task because I knew it was serious, yet whilst I was doing the task, I felt numb. Like,
Mm.
I literally could not process it, even though my brain, my normal it's not normal, my normal
Yeah, I know what
brain
you mean. Yeah.
knew it was serious. So, yeah, I would say definitely that the reaction to X circumstance can definitely vary a lot within people with BPD.
Mm. Do you have any coping strategies that you've picked up that you would recommend to others for both when you're feeling that like really high intense emotion
Yeah,
and also the down below, under
yeah.
reaction? Um,
I
yeah, how
would
do you deal with both of those situations? Sorry.
So when I'm going to give this answer, I want to make it very clear that I am not commenting on someone coping in a crisis situation because that's not an area that I'm willing to go into. So this is something outside of it happening, and this is something that I've learned from going through. It was approximately 8 months worth of a really extreme situation, which was triggering me to the max. So when it comes to being triggered and essentially being in an episode and being in that ultimate high and needing to come down, journaling and realizing what triggers you, and to the best of your ability, dare I say this, build a life which doesn't have those triggers in it. I know that's not as straightforward for everyone, and I know that can be extremely complex because people's triggers are different things. I will give a real life example. For me, that's why I'm not in a relationship. So that was a removal of a huge, huge, huge aspect to me getting triggered. Like, don't get me wrong, I still get triggered, but removing that was a huge improvement to my BPD, and to other people, it may be something else. But I'd got to know myself and I realized that's one of my triggers. And I also learned why that was one of my triggers. So yeah, journaling and noticing patterns and removing them where you can for being in the high moments. In terms of being in the low moments, something I've been doing is identity work. So when I don't want to do something, whether it's that I feel numb and I'm struggling to feel it, or whether it's that I'm just really not feeling it and I'm in like a really low mood swing of BPD. Like, you may have heard, with BPD, you can go from depressive states to euphoric very, very, very quickly, literally within a matter of minutes. I have identity work and I try and keep that as my baseline no matter what. So when I'm feeling low, I ask myself, who was my alter ego that I created during that identity work, and what would she do in that situation? That helps me to step out of the identity that I'm in that moment, which is the low version of myself, and to step into what feels like, again, someone with BPD, I feel like they're going to relate. Maybe someone else can relate, but I may be sounding like I'm speaking foreign language right now. Step out into someone who is not me, and that actually makes it easier.
I love that. How do you make sure that you don't lose yourself in that persona that you've created, though?
If I'm being completely 100% transparent with the persona I've created, I don't think it would necessarily be a bad thing, because the persona I've created, let's say, she's someone who goes to the gym very regularly. She's someone who eats clean very regularly. She's someone who gets it done even when she doesn't feel like it.
Mm.
That is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily someone completely different, but it's almost like someone who will take care of it when I don't feel like I can. Say
Mm,
the wounded version of me that is still in me, when she's more active, this higher version of me steps in.
I love that. That's great. Um, I I had a question before as you were talking about the depressive episodes versus the euphoric episodes.
Yeah.
Um, how would you explain the euphoric side and I know we're missing Izzy here. Izzy goes on at people who say manic instead of euphoric.
Oh,
Do
right, okay.
you know the difference between euphoric and manic? Have you had that explained?
Um,
Do you know the difference?
no, actually I haven't, but I'm willing to take an educated guess.
No, okay. Um, I was just gonna say because I know the main mania side is because of bipolar, and a lot of people just misuse the word. So I
I
was wondering
think
if you could just explain what euphoria feels like for you.
okay, have I got this right? That euphoric is a euphoric state is an emotional state and you just feel very high. And mania and a manic state is recklessly doing things in order to feel something.
Okay, to my understanding, yeah.
Right.
I
So
think
therefore they
again,
would be the same. So
yeah.
you could be in a manic state, but you're not necessarily feeling euphoric, and you could be in a euphoric state, but you're not necessarily presenting manic behavior.
Okay,
Is that correct?
I'm asking you. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. That's my educated guess, if I'm being fully honest. Like, I don't want to sit here and say that's my answer. I'm
Yeah, no,
just
that's completely fair.
think
Um,
that's roughly like
yeah.
somewhat right.
Um, in your euphoric state, do you not find yourself being reckless? Like, this is from an outside perspective. I'm not very educated on all this. I imagined that euphoric also included like erratic or like unusual behavior.
Um, if I'm being honest, I would say very often I think it can, but then
Okay.
I think it would look different across different people. So I think it would be very understandable that different people would present
Mm,
differently with this. So, but if I'm talking from a personal perspective, my euphoric states, yeah, if I'm being honest, yeah, they
okay.
very can often have manic episodes. And are they the best? No, not really. Like, some days I can be fully booked, have a really good financial day, eat really clean, go to the gym, and I am not joking, at like 5 p.m., I will have this screaming voice in my head which is saying, "You're a failure, you're an absolute failure, you're good at nothing, you've achieved nothing, blah, 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 blah." I will have other days, like I will literally be sat on my arse all day, achieved absolutely fuck all, earned no money, and I'll be like, I am the best thing since sliced bread. I'm going to go out to Selfridges and buy myself whatever I want because I deserve it. I'm amazing. And it's like, there's no logic in those two things at all, but that is sometimes how my brain works. And I'm not sure if I'm going to regret coming on here and openly admitting that, but I'll be transparent.
No, that's completely real.
So yeah,
Um,
that happens.
That's how I feel.
yeah, Mason's got BPD as well.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, yeah.
Is a lot of the things I'm saying, are they making sense then?
Yeah, yeah. Every time I'm nodding my head, it's because I agree with
Yeah.
you.
Okay, right, okay, I'm with it now. I didn't actually know
Yeah.
that. Is it just Mason who has BPD?
I'm waiting to see if it's that or something else. I'm not too sure.
Okay, got it.
Um, something to do with mood swings. So
Okay.
again, what you're saying does make sense. That's
Oh,
what I was asking about, like the mania versus euphoria, because
okay,
I can't figure out what I'm experiencing myself. Um,
right,
so I was
got it.
very interested in that.
Yeah, so I I volunteer for Living on the Borderline. It's a peer support group for people with BPD.
Okay,
And we have in-person events in London. We have like bi-weekly virtual community meets.
yeah.
So I basically found out I had BPD and I was just like, I can't sit around doing nothing. So I went and looked for other people and yeah, it's a good space. You're
I love
invited.
that.
Oh,
Yeah, little plug in there, yeah.
living on
Got
the
that
borderline,
back.
did you say?
Living on
Living
the
on the
borderline,
borderline,
yeah.
yeah. You can
I
find it
will
on
search.
Instagram and Discord. Yeah.
I will be able to find that on Instagram. I haven't created an Instagram for the female shark yet. I feel like I will, but I feel like I need to like pour my everything into one platform, and then say if people wanted an Instagram, like say for example if people wanted like story updates throughout the day, then I'd do that, but I'd do
Love
it if I
that.
felt like people needed it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Not
Do
for
you
me.
feel like you need it? Like it helps you? As you said, you like to like journal and note things.
I like to journal and note things 100%. I feel for me personally, one thing which was a huge weight off my shoulders was getting to know myself. Because
Mm,
when you don't know why you're acting certain ways, I think that massively contributes towards why it feels so heavy because there's no
mm,
understanding behind it. Like you can react a certain way to a certain situation, a certain person, a certain scenario, location, whatever it is, and if you don't understand it, that is and it's also completely out of the norm from what a
mm,
normal person would act, that can be extremely confusing and destabilizing whereas when you learn about yourself and you know, right, I'm acting this way in this situation because of this, for me personally, that's very freeing because I can either then there becomes another fork in the road where it's like I can either do something about this and I can heal it, or if I choose to, I can avoid it. And I'm actually going to add into here right now. I think there's a bit of a stigma behind avoidance situations, and I don't actually think it's always a bad thing. If you know yourself and you know that that situation's not appropriate for you, then avoid it. Like, I get people saying to me all the time, oh, like you'll find someone one day. Oh, you'll change your mind. I genuinely, at this point, don't know if I ever will be able to be in a relationship again and if I will ever want to be. Right now, I have zero desire whatsoever because of my past experiences, and I have never been so happy and so free. I'm so close with my friends, I'm so close with myself, and I'm finding enjoyment in things which I literally was not able to find enjoyment in before. And that is very, very personal to me. So if someone else doesn't like a certain place or a certain situation, I would completely advocate for, yeah, if you can, and if it's realistic for you, then avoid it. If you want to, like, I'm not saying you have to, but if you choose to, then do it.
On that, do you have any advice for like when that avoidance is too much? Like if you don't mind me speaking personally about myself, I get I call it intermittent agoraphobia. Like sometimes I'll wake up and I'll be fine and I'll be like, I want to go outside right now. And other times it is the worst thing on the planet and I will not leave my house for months. Like obviously that's the bad, like, the other end of the stick. Like how do you balance the avoidance, controlling your life to that degree?
That is
Do you
such
have
a
any
good.
experience on that? Yeah, sorry,
Uh,
that's very a deep
it's
question. You might not
really,
know the
no,
answer.
it's a really good question, and I'm more than happy to answer it. You might need to give me a few seconds
No,
because
it's
I
okay.
don't know the
Because
answer
I
on that.
agree with you. It's good to avoid triggers, but
Yeah.
there is like the other spectrum where like I will go through phases where I avoid everything. I've not left my house in God knows how long, because everything's too scary. Um, so I'd love to know like, is there another side to that coin of
Okay,
how do
so
you push
I'll
yourself?
multiple aspects into this. First of all, what I spoke about with the identity. So
Mm,
I'll be honest, actually, I've been through phases. It's not been months, but it's been weeks for me where so I live in a city centre. So for example, like if I want to go out to like the shops, I can basically go anywhere. So bringing that into the scenario, I can go to any shop in the city centre, into the major shopping mall. I could like supermarkets are a short drive away. Everything is within close proximity. I've had weeks where I've not wanted to leave the house because I do not want to be in public, so I get it. And this is where I feel slightly hesitant talking on some things because I don't want to say, "Oh, do this," when I didn't do it myself.
Yeah.
Um, so what I would say is the identity work, where I was talking about creating an alter ego and basically saying, what would that person do? Who is that person? Who are they? What character traits do they have? So that's one thing. And then I think you said, when does it become too much? I would say it's become too much when the avoidance is causing more pain than the actual thing itself. And even though your logical mind will say, I know that that would actually be less painful than staying in from this point onwards, you're, I don't want to diagnose you right now because
No.
what I say, I'm not going to say your BPD mind. Can I say your neurodivergent mind?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because BPD is classed as neurodivergent, and if it's a personality disorder, I believe that would be classed as neurodivergent as a umbrella term. So your neurodivergent mind will be telling you a different story.
Mm.
Um, and then one thing that works for me, everyone's different. I'll take it back to something I said at the start as well, which is being a realist. Like a lot of days, I say to myself, okay, I feel this way. I've got BPD. It is what it is. Literally, just saying that, as brutal as it sounds, that literally lifts so much off my shoulders because I'm not fighting it. The amount of energy it takes to fight something and being in denial, like for example, if I was like, I don't have BPD, I'm fine, I can handle a relationship, I can do this. The amount of internal resistance I've found within myself and the amount I've struggled is so much more compared to the days where I've just looked in the mirror, I'm like, do you know what, I've got BPD and this is why I'm feeling this way. And that I've had, so within the multiple different things that I do, I've had creative blocks where I can't come up with any new creative ideas. I'm really struggling to expand and I'm struggling to even see existing clients who I've been seeing for months. So I've had really low periods. And the second I look in the mirror and I say that, or maybe I'm not, I'm lying when I say I look in the mirror. I don't look in the mirror, I say it in my own head. Um, I almost I start to get my creative splurges, if that's the right word, I have no idea.
Okay,
Creative
okay.
splurges after that, and all my energy just starts flowing again because when there's no enemy within, the enemy from outside can do no harm. So you are your biggest enemy sometimes. And when you give yourself compassion and forgiveness, it sounds brutal to say, like, I have BPD, it is what it is. But essentially, what you're doing is giving yourself compassion. And
Mm.
sometimes that resistance can come from the compassion that you're not giving yourself because you're actually in an internal battle of why am I like this? Why do I feel this way? I'm so frustrated. Whereas if you were like, do you know what? It is what it is. I'm
Mm.
me. Okay, I struggle with this, but I've accepted it. Now what can I do about it?
I love that. Off the back of that, you saying, just admitting to yourself about the BPD. Did you find that getting diagnosed was freeing in a way? Did it explain a lot of things and help you, or did it also come with restrictions?
For
How did it
me,
make you feel in a way? Yeah.
when I first got the diagnosis, I actually didn't really feel any type of way. If I
Mm.
felt any type of way, I would say it was more on the freeing side. So it almost sort of registered as quite neutral because at that time I was presenting 9 out of the 9 symptoms. I was a completely different person to who I am now. I was in a completely different life stage. I had a completely different lifestyle. I had a completely different outlook on life. I was just completely different. So receiving that diagnosis, it was just sort of like, it is what it is, but it makes a lot of sense. So I would say that it makes a lot of sense part was freeing. But in terms of like the self-awareness I've got now, in terms of I know why I react this way, I know this is what triggers me, I know why this triggers me. I didn't have any of that.
Mm.
Um, So that was definitely a journey, and that did not come instantly either. I'd say it was a very gradual process from the ages of 19 when I was diagnosed through 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 to where I am now, where I learnt things very, very, very gradually. So I'd say neutral, but if I had to say on one side, it was slightly more freeing just to sort of have that information because
Yeah.
I did look into it and I did think, oh, this is why I am the way I am. And it almost helped give me a bit of explanation as to why I'd been doing what I'd been doing, especially up to that point. I definitely had a very bad spell of about 4 months before I was diagnosed that were really bad.
Yeah. Do you feel like it kick-started your healing process? Like it do you think healing's possible without the diagnosis, or do you think that was a big aspect of it?
I would say healing is possible without the diagnosis if someone has awareness of inner work and things of those natures. So, sort of like inner healing and compassion with yourself and personal development and all that sort of like world of things. If you've got that understanding, do you need the diagnosis? No, I'd say you don't need it. It didn't begin my journey with personal development. So, my journey with personal development and all that sort of stuff started when I was 14, and that was a coping mechanism from being bullied in school.
Oh, sad.
So, it's all good. I had a very, very rough experience in school. My school experience was awful. I was in and out of different schools, and it was an absolute nightmare. I was like 14, getting ready in the morning, absolutely dreading going into school. My attendance was horrendous across all of my secondary school years because I didn't want to go. On the days that I did go, I would be doing my makeup, getting ready, listening to a personal development speech to get me through the day, like a motivational speech, basically saying all those cliche things of no matter how hard it gets, you can do this, you can push through, you've got this. And that's what got me through school. So that's when like my personal development journey began. Um, but I can't say I really understood the concept of journaling until I was journaling at the age of about 16. Maybe this is me remembering things on the spot here. So
No, it's
if
all
I
good.
think back, I'm sure I was journaling in like 2016, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't
Okay.
know I was journaling. Like I didn't know that was what I was doing essentially now, but on nowhere near as a deeper
Mm.
level. And then it was when I was like 18 when I'd see all these things on Pinterest, and it was kind of like more of an aesthetic thing when they were saying like have a
Okay.
journal. And it was like all these perfect pages. And I was like, what's that? Like, I didn't really get it. I was like, is there like a certain way you should journal? Like, I don't get it. But
Mm.
then when I was like, I'd say when I was no, actually, yeah, I'm remembering things on the spot now. When I was 20, I was on holiday with an ex-partner who it really wasn't a good situation at all. And I was journaling in the hotel room when they were out, and I was basically saying, I have to change my life. I have to stop going in these cycles. That was after I was diagnosed. It was a point in my healing journey. It wasn't the start of it.
Okay. That's a good answer.
I would say my healing journey actually began when I was, I want to say 21. I might be wrong, I might be right, but from right now, trying to remember in this moment, I think that's when I realized I needed to heal. Like I became
Mm.
aware that I needed to heal. Like before then, I can't remember having the mindset of I need to heal.
Yeah, I get that. People, find healing in different ways. I'm just wondering, like, what your almost like recommendations or what you found most success with. Like, some people turn to medication, some people turn to therapy, some people just, try and do it themselves with like things they find online or like their own support system.
Mhm.
What have you found most success in? Like, what would you recommend?
I personally have found the most success through self understanding and also self acceptance. like not being a contribution to the demons myself and having internal understanding. But I do not have a personal recommendation as such because everyone has their own ways. And for
Yeah.
some people, I've definitely heard like therapy massively helps them, whereas for me, absolutely not. It
Okay.
never did. I do not think therapy is a bad thing. I've got nothing bad to say about it, but for me personally, as an individual, it did not work with the way that my brain works. It might literally be the best thing since sliced bread for someone else. And I think as well, you have to be at a certain point to do self inner work. Some
Mm.
people are not ready to face their past, and that is perfectly fine. So I think there's an individual pace for everyone. There's individual methods for everyone, and I am actually a huge, huge believer in not one size fits all. I
Yeah.
know already 100% that my page is not going to be for everyone. My brand isn't going to be for everyone. I knew that before starting it, and I don't want it to be because no one is ever going to be for everyone. My page is going to be for people who are at a certain point in their journey, and they're
Mm.
going to be the people that are going to absolutely love what I'm doing, and they're going to be the people that I can help. There are going to be other people who are going to absolutely despise what I'm doing, and I am perfectly okay with that. The reason they're going to despise what I'm doing is because what I say is going to go against their internal beliefs. And identity as humans is a huge thing to us. And if I threaten someone else's identity by saying that it's possible to heal when someone believes that it's not possible to heal, I'm threatening their identity. Therefore, I'm actually going to be a trigger. So,
Yeah.
and I'm literally here to help people cope with it. Yet I am going to trigger some people. So that I think just sums up that there is definitely no one size fits all. If I
Mm.
had to have an opinion to any degree on it, I would say in terms of medication, I personally believe relying on medication alone is a recipe for disaster. Um, but if some people individually find it helpful for them, then absolutely go for it.
Love that. Good answer. So you've spoken a lot about doing like identity work with yourself and like reflecting inwards and realizing what triggers you, what helps you, what doesn't.
Yeah.
How do you take that first step? And what does it mean to do identity work and inner reflection?
Okay, so obviously one of the core aspects of BPD is having an unstable sense of identity. So me coming on here with someone who has BPD and coming onto my page and talking about identity work might be ever so slightly confusing to some people. So, but one thing I've always said is in terms of identity, that is another thing that I don't fight. So I'm not going to be my own internal worst enemy with that. If I want to have, let me think of an example. If I want to, this is a really bad example because I don't feel like I would do this, but I'm just going to use it as an example. If one day I want to have really heavy makeup on, a blowout, and a pink dress and heels, I'm gonna do it. And if the next day I want to wear straight cut jeans and Jordans and a tank top and straight hair and minimal makeup, I'm gonna do it. I do what I feel, and that's, I'm kind of going off topic here, but being self-employed, not being in a job, sort of allows me to do whatever I want and embrace my different identities. It's not really something I'm fighting. But in terms of identity work, again, I don't want to give like a solid answer of identity work is this because it's going to look different for everyone. What identity work does for me and the way that it best serves me is what does my alter ego do when I'm not feeling it? What would she do in this moment? Okay, right now I might be craving this food, but is this what the highest version of myself would do? Because on a biological level, on a neuroscientific level, I think it's called with BPD, the prefrontal cortex is less active, and that's the part of the brain which is for logic and reasoning, whereas the amygdala is more active, and that's the part of the brain which is emotional responses, fight or flight responses, stuff like that. I believe, if I'm not 100% correct on that, don't sue me, I'm not a clinician, all right? But from what I remember, I believe that's the case. So, identity work helps you override your prefrontal cortex's lack of activity when it's not functioning properly in that moment. That's what I read in an article once, and that's what really helped me stick with identity work. In terms of starting, I would say, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, but I would say if someone wanted to start identity work and they didn't know where to start, I would say the first step is take away the fact that you could potentially be your own enemy in this scenario. Like, say, for example, you're like, but I don't know who I want to be. I don't know what I want to achieve. Okay, well, instead of saying it in the tone of voice of, I'm such a failure, I don't know who I want to be, I don't know what I want to achieve, say it in a compassionate tone of voice like, okay, I don't know who I want to be, and I don't know what I want to achieve, and that's okay. Now let me go and find out. The difference in the amount of answers that are going to come to you with literally just those two different internal tone of voices is going to be absolutely immense. So I would say the most important thing is when starting out, remove the internal conflict for yourself and just let whatever comes out. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that answer.
Have you spent any time around people with BPD, or have you just spent a lot of time by yourself learning about it?
I've spent a lot of time by myself. In terms of my lifestyle in general, I spend a lot of time with myself. My social time is very, very limited actually. And my time with my clients is sometimes the only social time I have. Um, I do have a close friend who is undiagnosed with BPD, and it's only recently come to light that they may have BPD. Um, so no, I'm actually not in sort of any environments with other people who have it. Um, I'm not really in any environments in general, if I'm being honest.
Fair.
I'm very much like I do everything by myself, and I occasionally see my friends.
No, that's completely
Because
fair.
yeah, I moved cities. That's just another sort of part of my story. I moved cities, and ever since I've moved here, like I've actually started my entire life from scratch. So everyone I'm sort of it's like building life all over again. So yeah, I do sort of do things like go to the gym by myself, I go shopping by myself, I do everything by myself. If I was in an environment where I'd grown up with friends, would I be by myself this much? Probably not. So there's definitely the aspect of the fact that I moved to a completely different new city. Um, but no, I haven't been around people with BPD much.
Well, you're welcome to experience it.
Definitely gonna follow that page, 100%.
Just remembered a question I had earlier. So you spoke about how you couldn't personally do like a normal job where you're employed, like, and you
Yeah,
said that you're self-employed.
yeah.
Um, how do you find working, even though it's work for yourself, but how do you find working with BPD? Does it affect how you work compared to like an say like a colleague, or I don't know, do you have people employed under you?
So
I
I
don't know how your
have
job works, sorry.
absolutely fine. So I do actually have staff. Um, I have one staff who is paid on a weekly basis. So I have a PA who is paid a salary. And then I have freelance people who I employ as and when. So I've got service accommodation properties, which are Airbnb. So for example, like I would employ someone else to build the furniture. I also have management for those properties. So management is paid on a percentage share basis, so they're not on a salary, and people who build furniture or do maintenance or stuff, they're just paid on an as and when basis.
Yeah.
So I don't really class them as my staff, whereas my PA, she is a staff member.
Well, well,
So
just like people that you've worked around or with, like, do you find that you work in different ways?
okay, so I'm 24 now, and I became fully self-employed when I was 20. And before I was fully self-employed, I had been in and out of 20 different jobs with from the space of age 14 to age 20. At multiple of those different jobs, I really struggled mentally. Before I was diagnosed, I was getting triggered during those jobs and not realizing what was happening. Um, Little things were not little to me. It was a lot more difficult. Whereas was, when I'm working for myself, if I'm being completely honest, sometimes I don't get back to inquiries as fast as I say I should, but I'm always on time. So sometimes I'm like having my own little moment that people
Yeah.
like don't know about behind the scenes, and I can be a little bit last minute. But say for example, like I need to get back to someone by a certain time, I'm always able to stay on top of that. But I think it's just the mental aspect of being self-employed, I feel in control, whereas being
Mm.
employed, I feel out of control. I
Yeah.
will also mention that I have impulsively left jobs before and also just never gone back. Besides being fired, having episodes, and just not turned up to work again, I've done all the above. Yeah, it's
I feel
happened.
that on a spiritual level.
Yeah.
I'm the same.
I'm exactly the same
Yeah,
as well.
can't lie. So there was actually this situation. I don't really know if I want to say this, but I'll say it. Yeah. There was a situation where in one of the jobs I was working, I was told that from the next week I was being moved locations and it was going to be me and one other guy working in the office. Men are actually a huge trigger for me. No offense to anyone at all. It's not meant to be offensive, it's just part of my personal story. Um, so men are a huge trigger for me. So when I found out it was going to be me and this guy in the office, I didn't show up. I never went back. Um, no one understood it. To a normal person, that's not rational at all. But to someone who has BPD, a trigger is a trigger. And yeah, I just never went back to work to that job. So I said, and I am also someone it's quite reckless. Like most people would take this quite seriously, but I literally just said on the Friday, I will not be coming back to work on Monday. Consider this my notice. And I just had no fucks to give. Like, no fucks. Like, someone else would have been like, oh my God, like, you can't just do that. Like, that doesn't register in my brain. I do it. Like, I don't care. So,
I completely feel you on that. I think I would do the same, yeah.
also
That's
with my different like businesses and stuff, one thing I do is if a client annoys me, I block them. Like I don't care. Like one of the reasons I have a PA is because I'm incapable of sometimes sending a professional email. If the
okay.
email comes from me versus if it comes from my PA, I will say what I want versus my PA is much more professional.
Mm.
And definitely for multiple of the businesses I've got, that is actually required.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't do it. So yeah, I have my PA for that. And multiple times, like say for example, if someone wants to book me and they're like, could you do lip filler at 12 p.m. and say it's at like 9 a.m. that morning, and then they message me at 9 and then at 9:20 they send me 4 question marks, I'm blocking that person.
That's so real. I
I
wish I
don't
could do that
care.
at
Like
work.
I just don't care. So yeah, I feel much more in control. And I've been building my businesses for the past since I was self-employed. So I have clientele where, like, almost working, this may sound slightly weird, and I don't want to say anything because I want to be aware of, I don't know who's going to see this, but working is my safe space because it's what I'm good at. Working, coming up with new ideas, building something and providing a service is what I'm good at. Like that is part of my identity, is grafting and hustling and building and always trying to become better than who I was the day before. So taking bookings, doing inquiries, working on a new project, taking on a new property, whatever it is, that is my safe space. That's where I feel calm. Like, for example, if a man triggered me, I have literally had situations where a guy has tried to talk to me. This is going to sound so OTT. Some people, this is going to be their trigger, and other people, it's not going to be their trigger, but they will be able to relate it to whatever their trigger is. So if a guy has tried to talk to me, I have literally come back to my apartment. I will close the door, lock the door, put something in front of the door. And when I say something, I mean a big piece of furniture.
Mm.
Energetically cut off from it, go on my work social media, go on my work phone, go on my work emails, reply to inquiries, do bookings, work on whatever I'm working on. Like it could be a website upgrade, it could be another project I want to launch, like whatever it is, and either be with someone in a booking, like say for example doing a facial balancing booking, be on the phone with someone about a potential serviced accommodation deal, or be sitting at my laptop working on the next project. I feel very, there's a word for this, but it's not coming to me. Like very safe in that moment. So that's the control and freedom that working for myself brings me, which I
Love
think
that
was
for
the
you.
question you asked me, which I completely forgot what the question was.
So good. It was just about work in general, which if that works for you, then
So yeah, there were
it's good.
multiple
Yeah.
triggers at work that I personally just couldn't handle, that someone else would be like, just fucking get on
Why
with it.
just do it? Yeah. No, I
On with it.
feel that completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that you were hoping to get across by doing this video?
My main message to anyone who is struggling with anything, obviously I can speak from personal experience on BPD. I cannot speak on personal experience from anything else that I know of, but it's when something applies to you, so like say borderline personality disorder, for example, you will be given a box that you are told that you have to fit into. But that's not the truth. You don't have to fit into that box, and it's your choice if you want to step out of that box. There are things that I've done that someone with BPD technically shouldn't do. There are other aspects to my life where I go against the norm and I break stereotypes. I am all about breaking stereotypes. So I want to say my message is about breaking stereotypes, but I can speak from experience on BPD. And I basically want to give people with BPD an example that you do not have to fit into a box. You can create your own box. And your box doesn't have to look like my box. Your box needs to look like whatever you want your box to look like, but it doesn't need to look like the box that you were passed when you were given your diagnosis. So, if you want to find me, as things stand at the time of this recording, I have one social media platform and it is at The Female Shark on TikTok. It's got 2Ks at the end. I have already had someone approach me and say they want to interview me for a YouTube video. So, YouTube might be coming soon, but if I'm being honest, I'm just scared. And I reckon that an Instagram will come one day, but the day that that will come will be the day that I feel like people want it. And when that comes, that will be announced on my TikTok.
So what you're saying is everyone should go follow you and share their
Yeah.
thoughts and their love for excellent. No
Thank
worries.
you so much for having me.
No problem. Thanks for joining. It's been good. I've been using this like my personal therapy. I've learned so much. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna go start journaling now.
I love that.
I love
That's
this.
amazing.